very warm welcome to all of you on this wonderful Fireside Chat with R.Gopalkrishnan. From Focus You, I am Dr. Rajshri, and I'm very pleased to have you all on this lovely, lovely session where we aim to get some really, really insightful, wisdomful, if I can use, answers to some of the questions that we come with our guests today. Before I get into the real conversation that I am so raring to go, let me just briefly introduce our wonderful guest over here, whom I had once chotu sa privilege of working with when I was at Tata Management Training Center. So it's a pleasure to have him over here. Long back, I always dreamt during my salad days that I would one day be in Oprah's show and she would interview me. Uh, but years down the line, I think God has bigger plans. Today, I am probably doing her role. I feel almost like that. So, this is that moment of joy for me as well, that not an Oprah show, but almost doing the kind of stuff that Oprah does. So, it's a great day for me. And before I start, a small little introduction from me about this very wonderful person that we are going to interact with. With formal orientation in the discipline of physics from Kolkata University, in engineering from IIT Kharagpur, and then an advanced management program from Harvard Business School. Today with us is an iridescent personality, or should I say a celebrity with us, that is R.Gopalkrishnan. I say celebrity because not only is he a highly accomplished Indian business leader with over 50 years of corporate experience, 34 years of board experience, and over 100 keynotes in India and abroad, but he's also an author of 18 and still counting thought-provoking books to his credit. I can possibly take this whole session just enumerating all his accomplishments. But to make the most out of this time with this man himself over here, let me start this session by welcoming one of the wealthiest persons I have known. A person with a wealth of experience, wealth of insight, and of course, wealth of wisdom of a lifetime to share. So, with this wonderful, wonderful person that we are going to interact with, also a little to it. So, what we're going to do is encourage all of you to actively participate in this particular interaction that we have set aside for you. There are two ways and special opportunities for all of you lovely people to make the most out of this session, and that is, first and foremost, get a chance to get featured on our official social media handles. All you need to do is simply tag us or use the hashtag Focus You Firestarter. Charvi, you can put it up for all of the audience over here. And whichever post you would like to kind of release from your end for this event, please use this hashtag. But what's more, can you see these three books around me? Well, 10 of you awesome people who are absolutely highly engaged and are participating actively, you stand a chance to get one of these books from and written by RG. So with that, let's not wait any more longer and get into the conversation with this wonderful person out here. Hello, sir, and very good evening to you.
Thank you.
Very welcome, very warm welcome. And what I plan to do is break up some questions in terms of a few things which are about leadership and management and all of that. And then later on, maybe something, to do about to know a little bit more about you as well. So let me start this particular set of questions, which I have so been wanting to ask you for a long time. And of course, we will be looking at it from the lens of the work, the workforce, the workplace, and today what we understand as the world of work. Yeah. So these are typically going to be my lens. So my first question, and that is about the very concept of leadership itself. We have heard a lot about it, theories, traits, types, right from command and control leadership to now the trending word, everyday leadership. But what is your take on this ubiquitous concept of leadership especially in the context of 21st century?
Yeah, thank you very much for introduction. You must send a copy of this recording to my wife to say, other people think I'm not too bad. But that's the plight of all spouses, I suppose. On a serious note, I want to, you said, what are the leadership? How do you see leadership, the latter part of the century? I have already had a career which is 55 years. And I can see within my career of 55 years, the whole expectation of what leadership is and how it will manifest itself has changed dramatically. So I don't have to go back 100, 200 years. It's within my short, in the history of annals of history, 55 years is not such a long time. So when I joined, when I began my career for the first 30 years, 40 years, at least that's the way I thought of it, a leader knew more than his subordinates. Subordinates went to the leader to get instructions. The leader was a very, very clever guy who could sort out very complex problems, and he was decisive. And this knowledgeable, decisive person had, in image terms, I'm not saying literally, big blue eyes, a square jaw, and a deep voice. He could bark out orders. And when I think of who are the archetypal heroes, there were people like Sewell Avery, who was running retail chain in the US. There was Harold Janine, who was running ITT. And latterly, there was Jack Welch, who was running GE with the tag of Neutron Jack. So you can imagine about the word neutron itself tells you. But I have to say, and I have tried to emulate them, because when you're young, somebody says these are the heroes. The first lesson I learned now that I'm grayer and older and wiser, I hope, is you can't emulate somebody else's leadership style. You have to be yourself. And so there is no archetype for leadership. You know you're a leader when there are people behind you following. And Gandhiji came back from South Africa. I don't know how many millions followed him, but he was not those archetypes that I just described. Big blue eyes, square jaw, barking orders, showing that he knew more than other people. So at any point of time, there have been multiple concurrent features. But I don't want to be inadvertently ducking your question, because you said for the 21st century, and I have put my version.
Okay.
That it's an ABCD of leadership, which 5 alphabets that appeal to me and which I would like to leave for your audience to think about.
Okay.
Reject it if they don't agree, but accept it or practice it if they agree.
Okay.
A, B, C, D, E. A stands for articulate. To be a good leader, you have to be a good salesman. And I'm using the word salesman not in a pejorative or a negative sense, because some people think salespeople are all crooks. There are archetypes people have in their mind. Right. But I'm saying if you can't sell an idea, then you're be a leader. You may sell it very softly, like Dr. Manmohan Singh sold the nuclear deal in a very soft way, or you may sell it with a very fiery speech. So there are multiple ways in which you can do it. So A stands for articulate.
Okay.
B stands for balanced. People hold out Elon Musk as a great hero. He's an unbalanced person. And I don't think he may be a genius. Many geniuses are unbalanced. But I don't think common people like us, and I hope many of the people in our audience should think we are all geniuses. None of us is a genius. So being balanced. Balanced means you can listen twice as much as you speak. Right? It's very easy to speak. It's very difficult to listen. So that's what be balanced means. C stands for being collaborative. You see, the old archetype of a leader was directive. He tells you what to do. I didn't know what to do, so I went to my boss and he told me this is the way to do it. Now he's saying, let's put our heads together. It's a very softer type of leadership. D stands for decisive. After listening to everybody, you can't leave it up in the air. So you have to take a decision and you have to be decisive.
Okay.
And E stands for empathetic. My good news is I'm not going to go to F, G, H, I, J, K till Z. I'm stopping with A, B, C, D, E in the hope that empathy, which was never considered a leadership trait, if you look at the literature of 40 years ago, will enter that realm of people who do leadership training. And those are the kind of leaders who will be successful in the future, in my opinion.
Very nice. So we have articulate, balanced, collaborative, decisive, and empathetic. And I think that's a great, great takeaway. And with that, of course, an interesting follow-up question, that I kind of feel I should also ask at this point in time. In many of your speeches, sir, you also have talked about the 4 A's, achievement, affability, advocacy, and authenticity. But given the current workforce that we have seen over a period of time now, largely, seeking more meaningful work, wanting to have a very, work-life balance-oriented lifestyle and everything. In your opinion, these 4 A's, how does it therefore play out? Do you think some A needs to be changed or a new one needs to be added in the list?
You can keep on adding. I've written 4 A's 10 years ago. It's not
Okay.
1 century ago. And I don't think anything substantive has changed. You can always play around, have 4 B's or 4 C's, and they may be making equal sense. The reason I created these 4 A's is they were directed at people below 30.
Okay.
And people below 30 had different ideas of a career. I hesitate to say wrong ideas. They may be different from me, but they had various ideas of what a career is like. And I wanted to bring across the idea that a career is what you make of it, not what is given to you by the company. Right? Many people say, which company should I join? I've not become vice president or general manager. Should I make a change? I'm getting another 500 rupees somewhere else or 5,000 rupees. Shall I make a change? So a career is a bit like a marriage. You have to be deeply conscious of what you bring to the table before criticizing what the other person has not brought to the table. Right? Organizations are also imperfect, but so are employees. So that's why I thought of the 4 A's. And I said, these 4 A's, for those who have not read the book, I will summarize it. The first A hurdle you have to cross is you must be seen as an accomplishing young officer. So I remember when I was 22, I was sent off to be the area sales manager of Karnataka. And my task was to deliver X tons of sales or Y bottles of shampoo or whatever. And I was dealing with people who were twice my age. People had come up from below the ranks. Now, this happens everywhere. If you're an IAS officer, at 25 or 27, you're made a district collector, and people there working which are twice your age. If you're a young officer in the army, you go to NDA, and you become a second lieutenant, and you're controlling people who are twice your age. So you must learn to be affable also. That's the second A. Because you can't go around beating up people who are 50, 55, or almost your father's age. Yet you must be an accomplishing person. So you must have accomplishment, followed by the second A, which I call affability. At a certain stage, maybe 10 years or 15 years into your career, you must be a salesman of ideas. And if you're going to be a salesman of ideas, then you must be able to be an advocate of ideas. I call it advocacy.
Correct.
And that's the third thing. And then comes the last one, which is authenticity. So authenticity is now people are looking at you and analyzing you, and they come to their own conclusion that you're a good leader or a bad leader. There's nobody who's sitting on top, who's a vice president or something, who doesn't think he's great. But you ask the people below, they may have a different opinion. So if you can think of these as steps, you never leave one step, but they are a continuum. Then I think it's a lesson which lasts for the next 20 years, 30 years. After that, I don't know, I won't be around, but somebody else can make 4 Bs or 4 Cs. But I think it's extremely important for young people to think about what they bring to the table so that they have a satisfying career. Dissatisfaction in career comes because you are more conscious of what other people have to give you than what you have to give to the organization. That's why I wrote about 4 A's.
But I'll just kind of twist it a little here, and I've in my own experience, I've seen sometimes because the narrative at this point in time is so much that, you know, be your authentic self and bring your authentic self and everything. And if I reverse this entire steps, it almost seems like authenticity is now the big word, and later on those other things can follow. Have you experienced, or what would you say, that if this is the right way of going about it?
In my view, the opposite of authenticity is not lack of authenticity.
Okay.
We think of it as a bipolar thing, you know. You are authentic or you're not authentic.
Not authentic, yeah.
But it's a continuum. And now I'm again taking a person whom we all read about in the newspaper, Dr. Manmohan Singh. Most of us have not met him, and none of us knows him. But if you said, what is the authenticity of this man? You may say he's not a tiger of a leader or anything, but authenticity scale, I think he'll score very high. Right? So now the opposite is not an unauthentic person. So at any stage, if you're a quota, which is what not authentic means, then of course you'll be caught out. But there are various shades in between. And it is entirely possible that when you're 35, 40, approximately in the middle of your career, people say, ये काम बहुत अच्छा करता है, but पता नहीं उसका भरोसा है कि नहीं, you know. That's what I mean when I say, but when you're up as a leader, there was a famous American general who made a statement, the higher the monkey climbs, the more of his bottom you can see.
Yes, I've heard this.
Now, if the bottom was always there, but you couldn't see it, and you were not interested in the monkey's bottom, but when the monkey is sitting on top of the tree, his bottom is sitting and staring you in the face. And that's what I mean by authenticity. It becomes extremely important.
Very nice. Authenticity is largely also, I feel, you know, bring your true self to work. I mean, that's my understanding. And a lot of this has been triggered by social media, I would feel. But in today's context, where social media influence reach is so limitless, so uncontrollable, what is it that, you know, aspiring leaders should take note of, or how should they conduct themselves in this kind of a, you know, social media crazy universe that we are in, so that they don't get derailed midway into the journey? What would be those things?
No, who should not get derailed? Your question is about the youngster or the organization or what?
As a leader as well as if I'm looking at it as an organization, as a leader as well. But I would first talk about individuals and then as an organization, both.
You know, I'm very fond of metaphors. Okay. Because without a big, complicated explanation, the penny drops.
Yes.
you use one of the titles of one of my books.
Yes.
The metaphor I would take is, in a typical family, you raise your child, and those two parents give as much love, care, and protection from the big bad world outside as they possibly can. Nobody does it perfectly, but They give as much, they protect their child from the world, as it were. They pick up and drop at school, they give homework, they teach, they get, coaching, and they teach them good things, bad things, won't give them a cell phone, all that stuff. At comes some stage, and that age can vary, so I will not take an age, but just to be make the conversation easy, I'll just take the age of adulthood, 18. You have to let your child into the world. And they do it with a lot of hesitation. My mother did it, my father did it, your mother and father did it, and everybody's mother and father did that. And it's very much, there's a beautiful video that I have seen where a turtle drops all its eggs on the seashore in Odisha. And then after a certain period of time, when the eggs have matured, it digs them up and puts them in its mouth.
Oh.
If you're a novice, you will think it's going to eat up its own child.
Correct.
But it is holding them in the comfort or the warmth of its jaw. And there are about 20 or 30 baby turtles in its jaw. It goes slowly towards the ocean. And then almost with a reluctance, but with great love in its eyes, it opens its jaw and the little turtles go out. That's how parents raise their children. Colleges and universities, graduate their students. So I do believe that whatever the state of the world, chaos may be, the world has always been chaotic. Everybody thinks that his generation is the most chaotic.
True.
Because in a company, you have to do the equivalent of what I just described, is strengthen institutions and develop through people involvement and capability, building people's capabilities. To me, that is the most important thing a leader can do. Leaders think they have to deliver growth, they have to increase share price, they have to, double profits, they have to go down in history as some great guy. Those are consequences. Okay. Those are not aims. If you behave like the turtle, which is you treat each of those employees in your jaw with love and care, building their capabilities so that they get fruition in their careers and lives. What a wonderful organization you would have created. I've been very fortunate, although the metaphor may appear excessive. Ratan Tata is not a turtle who carried me in his jaw, or Hindustan Lever for that matter. But I think I'm using the metaphor to say people feel that you care for them. And the test of that is not at the time it's happening, because when you're young, you're 25, you'll criticize your organization, whether it's the best organization in the world, also you'll criticize. Even if God gives you an evening in heaven, you'll criticize him. Because that's the nature of youth, we are all of that. But now when I'm at the age I am, and I think back wistfully at all the people who influenced my life and career in shaping me to be who I am. I have no axe to grind. Those people, some of them are dead and gone. They don't know that I have loved what they did for me. I feel I was the baby turtle in somebody else's mouth. It was Hindustan Lever or later on in Tata. So I think the metaphor is powerful. And I would like to say that irrespective of the chaos outside, an organization that can create not an echo chamber, but a nurturing chamber. Okay. Where people can grow to their full potential. That would be the ideal to deal with the world. And I must just say, people may say, well, how do you do it? And I think of, I like to give another metaphor. Yes. You may think I'm a metaphor, but metaphors help. You take the course of a river. When you see the Ganga in going to the delta in Bengal, it's split into many channels. It is rough. It is unpredictable. Correct. The humdrum of, and it's gone in multiple directions to meet its ocean. The ocean I'm regarding like a mother. You come further up the Ganga in, say, Banaras or Allahabad. It's a huge river, but it's controlled within banks. Once in a while, the banks give way. Then you go further up
Hmm.
and you see the beginning at the Gangotri, the small little few drops are coming. You go to Talakaveri, when you see Kaveri, where I come from in Tanjavur,
Right.
it is incredibly huge. But if you
Hmm.
go to Talakaveri, it's a small trickle that's coming. In the same way, the small trickle that a company can give to its employees is the founder's philosophy. Jamshedji Tata said, we are not part of the community, we are the community. We have earned money from people, our vendors, our distributors, our transporters, our employees. We have to return the money to them. And to do that, he set up a trust and all that is a different story. So there's a philosophy. How that philosophy has been maintained for 155 years is just amazing for me. But when you come down to the day-to-day thing, I'm romanticizing it a bit, but when you come to the day-to-day thing, there's a lot of chaos. When you're working within the company, you say, what is this guy talking about? That's the Ganga at Banaras or Lucknow, or Allahabad. It's a huge river. There's lots of currents and counter currents going on.
Tides and everything.
And therefore, there's a philosophy. There are narratives and icons which hold the company together. And then when you finish with that, you get rituals. You take religion, most of us are obsessed with the religion because that's what your parents taught you.
Absolutely.
Every Friday you must do this, every Tuesday you must do Hanuman. That's a ritual. You don't even have an idea why you're doing. But if you go to the central philosophy of Hinduism or Christianity or whichever religion you belong to, it's utterly simple. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. That's a very elementary sort of philosophy. So I would very much like to see companies tackling the way the river comes down. Companies must also have their flow.
Talking about this, the companies, the founders' philosophy, and everything, I would just like to kind of bring our attention to this whole, this bourgeoising startup culture that we have, and a lot of young folks are in leadership positions. So, and I'm quite curious to know from you as well as probably some of the participants here would be, how ready do you think these young new age leaders are to groom, uh, people who in their company or in their fold? Because many of these people into their fold would be much more higher in experience or whatever it is. How do you think that kind of a setup works in the grooming culture of leadership?
Well, the green book that's behind you on the screen is exactly on this subject. Wisdom for startups.
That's very
Wisdom for startups from grown-ups. You see, age is only a metaphorical scale, One cannot prove that people at 55 are wiser than they are at 25. Or that people at 25 are more arrogant and brash. But the probability that at 25 a person is arrogant and brash is high compared to 55. And conversely, at 55, the person is likely to be more wise than at 25. But there are always exceptions.
Absolutely.
We should not get seduced by the exceptions, right? Unless you're a genius or something else is working in your mind. So when you say it is true, the average age at which a founder starts up a company in India is at least 10 to 15 years younger than the US.
Yes.
And that's telling you something. People in the US, probably because of social security, etc., I'm not going into the reasons, are able to do a job, learn a few things about management, about people, about finance, and then they do a startup. At a time probably when the risk is highest to them because they might have a family and commitments. In India, we make a virtue, or to the guy come out of IIT, he made a startup. And if somebody makes it and it says unicorn or sunicorn or whatever, it's celebrated a great deal. I have no problem in encouraging young people, but over encouragement, too much focus kills talent. You take Jennifer Capriati, who is a tennis player. You may or may not have heard of her. At 15, she was in a Grand Slam finals. And the cameras and the TV and everybody went after her. And very soon, she got onto drugs and she lost her tennis career. You take this girl, Raducanu, who is now a British tennis player. There's so much pressure on the child. I call her the child. She's 19 years old, 18 years old, and people pay her 2 million, 3 million.
Are we able to hear him? No, we cannot. Okay.
I think that's the patch of bad network.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I thought it was at my end and I would.
Yeah. We just wait for a few seconds and then we'll see.
Till then, everybody, whoever is taking some very, very, interesting notes from him, you can use the hashtag #FocusYouFirestarter and maybe you can do your posts. And in the meantime, also Charvi, I'm hoping that you are keeping eye on who is our most participative audience. Yeah, so we're very excited about that. We will do that as well.
Very much. We already have questions incoming.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe in another 5 minutes, once Sir comes, I have just 2 other few questions. After that, it will be open to all of you all. And you all can ask questions as well. You can get it from him answered. Huh? So I hope.
Yep, I'm back.
Welcome.
There was a power cut. I'm sorry about that. So I'm
But I made
using
the
my
most.
phone.
Huh.
Yeah, it's on.
We made the most use of
I don't
it.
know.
You were saying yes.
So yes, I was talking of young tennis players.
Yes.
So there's a lot of pressure. If you look at the top 100 unicorns in this country, all of them have been celebrated. They're on the front page of pink newspapers. But only 3 are profitable. 97 are still unprofitable. I may be wrong in my statistic by 1 or 2. So I think young people, I would always advise that it is a great thing to start up. Entrepreneurship is something I admire. But just because you have an idea in your head, don't think you're ready for a startup. Because an idea in the head is like a fetus in the womb of a woman. Don't declare that fetus to become a Nobel Prize winner. I mean, if anybody came and said, my daughter-in-law has just conceived and she's going to produce a Nobel Prize winner, you'd say, this guy's gone bananas, right? And when a startup person said, I got this brilliant idea, and that's going to be a unicorn or a sunicorn, that's the equivalent. So I think a certain measure of maturity, you take startups in the B2B space, they are far more, as the Punjabis would say, sayana, they are far more balanced and they earn profits. You take New Sigma, or you take a company like Zerodha, those are profitable companies. Some others, they need more capital to become profitable. And that's like a fat person of 150 kilos saying, unless you give him more food, he's going to feel lazy. And that is the kind of startup which I don't personally think is great.
Okay, interesting. And these are some trends which we are seeing. So I thought maybe,
I mean, some young people may not agree with me, and that's fine.
I mean, there are all kinds. But I would like to change tracks and then give it over to our audience. But 2-3 questions, which I think I'm sure the audience will also enjoy. So personally for me, I have observed 2 or 3 things, and I'm sure the audience also has seen now. Your frequent use of humor, analogy, or as you, in this case, metaphors that you've talked open, and your own personal experience. Curious to know these 3 traits, how can a leader or leader in the making can leverage these 3 things and to what extent? Humor?
To be to be very honest, I don't know. I'm not conscious that I'm using
Okay.
metaphors and humor and so on. Thank
Uh,
you for yours. But here's what I can say,
Hmm.
that communication is a very complex process.
Correct.
And to agree and disagree is easy. But to agree without disagreeableness
Oh,
is very tough.
absolutely.
You see, when I'll thump the table and say, I don't agree with you, you're talking nonsense. That's a very common thing amongst old and young people in the political space, etc.
Right.
But to disagree agreeably is a skill one must learn.
Hmm.
Because society cannot function if you disagree disagreeably. I mean, our television would be watchable if only those people can disagree without being disagreeable. But it doesn't work that way. And I'm not here to advise how television should be run. But there are polite ways of disagreement. You may have a point, but I wonder whether, I may not agree with you, but that doesn't mean we are enemies. So I think it's very, very important. Maybe intuitively, I have learned to use metaphors. One of the things that young people have asked me is, how do you deal with the uncertainty? Because we are faced with challenges from technology, internet, there's digital, artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. I think it's a very valid concern. And if I was 25, I would have that concern. How do I keep up to date, abreast? Because I might be good at 25, at 35, I'm already out of date. Those are very valid questions. And I always say that rather than give you a very intelligent answer, don't get worried about AI, use your NI, natural intelligence. And if you have a sister or a mother at home, just watch how she copes with the raising of the baby at home. I see when my wife and I were raising our family, we were all too busy. But when I see my daughters and daughters-in-law raising their babies, I'm a bit more detached and watching and intellectualizing. If the baby is howling at night, which is almost, it's guaranteed, not almost. It's a question of, my daughter will typically ring up Shalini, Padmini, Ragini and get some solution and she'll implement it. And my son-in-law will be going to Google or reading Dr. Spock to find an answer. And there's a certain amount of ready wit and maturity that women bring to childbearing, to child upbringing, which men lack. Men want it to be structured. So the natural intelligence of women makes them worry less about these things, because they say, get on and let's do it. Let's talk to 5 people and get an answer. The great supposed intelligence of the male species gets obsessed with AI while his wife is doing NI. And it's this kind of practical wisdom that I find very, very helpful when people say, okay, next time I'll watch my mother or sister. I say, watch. And by the way, your mother and sister for thousands of years have not been to an MBA course on raising a child. And for the next 1,000 years, there will be no course called raising a child. And if they went for a course on how to raise a child, they'll probably raise a terrible child. Because that's a natural evolutionary thing in women. And I greatly admire it, which is one of the reasons why I'm very much in favor of women coming into the office and workspace and so on and so forth.
Nice.
And not because they're smarter, but they got a different kind of smartness compared to men. And that can be sometimes irritating, sometimes valuable. So different from men. Men also can be irritating.
Interesting. On this similar topic, then I'll go with the last question and then raise it to the audience as well. The whole, the way, you just talked about how women problem solve and how, men do and things of that sort. But in the context of leadership as well, what's your take on women leadership as visionaries? Uh, this is a little bit of a topic where I'm kind of curious, and I'm sure a lot of the audience would be. So, while problem solving and all, I'm sure that they would be doing a lot. But what about being visionaries?
I don't know, this word visionary and vision mission is all sort of exaggerated a bit. At least at the stage of life that I am in, it looks like it's a bit exaggerated. Once the act is done of the startup or the department or whoever running very well, people say he was very visionary. The same person, when he or she is doing it, people say what a chaotic situation it is. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
When my wife and I were raising our family, when the children were growing up, I'm sure other people thought, what a way to raise a child. Is this the way to do it? Now my children are in their 40s and 50s. And people say, oh, you raised such a lovely family. And you both are visionaries. So I said, listen, I don't want to be called a visionary. We had the same vision that 8 billion people on this planet have. Raise a good family and raise competent children. I've never met any human being who doesn't have that desire for his or her child. And you do certain things intuitively. And then it works. Later on, you start branding them as vision. Yes, there are, in business matters, there are people with vision. But if that vision can become a self-obsessive prophecy to doom. Because as the Gita says, your vision should be to do your best. Leave the results to some. But we create a vision the other way around. I want to be a unicorn within 3 years. Or I want to be so rich in 10 years that I'll be on Forbes list, That kind of vision, there are dangerous kinds of visions. If vision is focused on what you can control and what you can do, it's great.
It is.
If vision is focused on ambition, which is outside your control, then you're doomed. Not doomed, that's a strong word to use. Then you are on the wrong track. You're on the wrong
track.
Rather,
Yes. Super. Wonderful. I think this in itself is food for thought for me, that, sometimes we get carried away with the loftiness of the concept itself. And like you said, in some cases, don't get seduced by exceptions. So these are...
I'd just like to close on this. I'm very fond of tennis by now, you would have gathered.
Yeah, I gathered that too.
Coco Gauff won the US Open 2 weeks ago. She's 18, 19 years old. She's a little baby from my point of view. And she wins the match after a lot of struggles that she has been through. And the interviewer asked her, what was going on in your mind at this particular point of time in the game, which was very tense? And this little girl, who was a Christian American black woman, according to me, narrates the Bhagavad Gita. How? She says, well, to be honest, all that I was thinking was that moment. How can I do the best at that time? And I never thought about the results. It turned out that I must have done the best, and therefore it must have given me the victory. I'm holding this cup in my hand. That's the essence of the Bhagavad Gita.
Exactly.
Okay.
Nice. And I think this is a wonderful closure. In the end, it's all about doing your bit, contributing to either, whether it's raising family or, building capability. I think from the start to the end, one always has an opportunity to be a leader in different circumstances. But here, so there are a few more questions which are in the chat. I will read out a couple of them that I can see right now. And this is from Roberta. She's asking, how to deal with a total no leader in a strong management position. How not to compete or conflict with him when you know you are a leader and people follow you, but they need to report to him.
I'm not very clear what it means.
Roberta and Sanchit, if you can unmute Roberta, and if she would like to kind of ask this.
We'll do that. Just a second.
Yes.
I mean, what I've understood is she's saying if my boss is a dud, how should I deal with it? But maybe I've got the question wrong. I don't
Yeah,
want to.
even I thought that, but I thought let me just still confirm with
Yeah, hello. Yeah, so I wanted to ask if we are in the situation where we have to deal with one of our superior, and is a total no leader, and everyone knows this, and but still is in a very stronger position than myself, or
anybody else.
And what's your question? How do I deal with it?
Yes, if you have any advice or
Okay.
suggestions.
The only advice I can offer is just because you and some of the people around you, whom you're free enough to discuss your boss with, because everybody won't discuss it, if you feel that the boss is not a great leader, it doesn't make it right. Okay, that's your opinion. You're entitled to it. Because some people have a soft approach to leadership, some people have a directive approach to leadership. And it is entirely possible, and you have to first eliminate that possibility. Because if he's a complete wimp, now suppose he's the son of the founder, that is a good example to take. Then you can do nothing about it. He's the son of the founder, you can't change that biology. Move on, get on to another job. But I'm assuming you're not talking of that situation. There's just a boss whom you don't greatly respect. It's worthwhile to see the problems that are being solved in the department or the company from that boss's point of view. Maybe he's insecure. Maybe he's got a different style. And not everybody has exactly the same style. Now, if you're satisfied that none of this is the case and he's an absolute idiot who should never have got there, then you better get out. Because if he's secure there for some reason, then you better get out. But don't do that in a hurry, because the chances are the problem is in your garden and not his garden.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. And I'm just happy we could take this as a verbal question. I have one other interesting question, and this is from Deepa. She's asking, you mentioned too much of encouragement can kill talent. So how can we bring that balance in the way we encourage people or our team?
You see, you should encourage accomplishment and not the person. Right? So if you're just again taking the example of a parent, if your children have come home with a mark sheet and they've got 90% in maths, or nowadays I'm told 90% is not good enough. So
I swear, I got it.
They've done very well in maths. You can always express your appreciation in words, through a hug, and maybe taking them out or buying chocolates and all that. But don't get them into the Bombay Times, for God's sake. That's the point I'm making. And if you're a parent, if your kid has come first in SSC out of 100,000 students, the Bombay Times will get after you. But you, as a parent, would try to protect your child from that. You try to avoid it, and if you can't avoid it, you say, okay, it's a once-off and that's it. But constantly projecting, it is the act of projection that I'm against, not the act of somebody recognizing your child. Spelling bee, a 9-year-old girl of Indian origin in America wins spelling bee, and great. It's one day wonder, 2-day wonder, 3-day wonder. Then the spelling bee has to get back to doing the same maths and English literature and geography in the school, right? If she walks around for the rest of her life as though she's a spelling bee. Here, let me give you a statistic. Deepa, is it?
Yes, Deepa, that's correct.
Westinghouse is an American corporation which started to say we want to groom first-class scientific talent. So around 1960s, I think, or 1970s, they started a very prestigious Westinghouse Talent Scholarship. And through certain tests and other things, they would select Westinghouse scholars. And then they would track them for the next 40, 50 years. Now, recently meaning 3-4 years ago, somebody said, now let's see what happened to these kids. The moment these kids were selected as Westinghouse scholars, they became highly conscious that they were Westinghouse scholars. हम कुछ अलग से हैं. And they found that very few of them got big honors like Nobel Prize or Academy of Science or Academy of Engineering. But those who were not selected as Westinghouse got those awards.
Okay.
So what do you do by excessive encouragement? And that's an intuitive, how much encouragement is intuitive, is that it actually turns the other way around. It makes them conscious. So encourage them to the point where they are not wearing it on their sleeve as though they are inherent geniuses. Reward them and recognize them for hard work, for persistence, but not to say, mere beta itna intelligent hai, because that doesn't work. Your beta is no more intelligent or a dud than the next beta.
I'll take Deepa. Hope that answers your question. And 2 more questions, sir, and then we will close for feedback and all. One very interesting question, and this is from Subramaniam, and he says, how to work on clarity of thoughts. That's his question.
Clarity of thought is a perception of clarity. I may think I'm very clear in my mind, but you may think I'm a very confused fellow. Go and meet your religious guru, just as an example. And you're absolutely clear in your mind that you're a good Hindu, does ABC. And he will prove to you in no time that you're a confused Hindu, you don't understand Hinduism. Think that you are very healthy and you take deep breathing exercises. Go to Baba Ramdev, he'll convince you that you're completely confused. So the first thing to understand is the clarity of mind is a relative perception. Now, you have to be as clear as you can be. And the trick, according to my experience, is to understand when you are not clear, because you only know in your own mind. So the world is complex. And having the humility to say, I have not understood this, I must ask somebody else. We are trained, I shouldn't say we are trained, we grow up thinking that to not know something is an admission of a weakness or a failure. And that is the biggest impediment to getting clarity of mind. I find it's impossible to know everything in the world, as you grow into more and more senior position. So if you can always have the humility to admit what you don't know, even if you're supposed to know it. I'm not saying in the 3rd standard you say, sir, I don't know what is 2 + 2, but then you'll be sent to 2nd standard. But clarity of thought comes out of the ability to be curious. And curiosity will come only with the humility of ignorance. So, Mr. Subramaniam, think about those.
Lovely thought. I mean, I'm just kind of, today my day, I know where it is going, just about connecting the dots on this part. Thank you, Subramaniam. Lovely question. And the last one we will go for now. And then after that,
After that, I can switch off and you will carry on with your something, right?
Yes, I will. And this is...
You tell me when you're kicking me out of the class. Yeah.
No, sir, we cannot kick you out. We would love to stay for another hour. Personally, I would. But this is one last question for you, sir. This is from Bharatji, and he's asking any tips to lead the employees of today's generation who have a very different need for work as compared to the generation probably you and I belong to, of course, and who usually switch jobs very quickly. So he is asking on tips how to deal with this kind of workforce.
Well, I don't know if I have tips, but what I can, to be brief about it, leave you to think about and come to your own tips is 50 years ago when I was beginning my career, IQ was being rewarded. वो बड़ा intelligent बच्चा है. And people would, in my college, in IIT and so on, would say, he's a Mensa 130, he's 5 beta kappa, and I was never in that league. So I always thought mera IQ dhima hai. But anyway, I managed to get through my life, and halfway through my career, people said, you must get EQ. वो Daniel Goleman का कुछ आया था.
Yes.
उसको समझते समझते मैं emotional quotient बढ़ गया. My wife was very happy because I thought I have improved my EQ. But to answer your question as to what you can do about it, you have to develop your AQ. AQ stands for adaptability quotient. इसके बारे में किसी ने अभी तक किताब लिखा नहीं है. And if I had the bandwidth, I would write a book. Because throughout your life, you have to be adaptable. If you want a good marriage, you have to be adaptable. Both of you have to be adaptable. If you want to raise kids in the family, you have to be adaptable. If you want to reward young people who are changing jobs frequently and have different kinds of ambitions and assumptions compared to when you were young, don't tell them jab main 20 saal ka tha. That's the worst thing you can do. But be adaptable. The biggest mistake that the people in their 50s, 40s can do is to tell young people, when we were trainees, we used to do all this. Who the hell is interested? When you were 25, were you interested in what the 55-year-old guy was doing? I think he said, shut up. So just be developing your AQ. If you think about it, the tips will come to you automatically. Okay?
Absolutely. Wonderful. And yes, and Bharat is also saying thank you, sir, for that. So thank you so much, sir, for bringing in all these insights, perspectives, and wisdom to all of us. And everyone, thank you so much. We will be sharing the feedback form, and Charvi will be sending that out and announcing the winners shortly for the books. But lovely questions, lovely profound answers, sir. And I think I couldn't have asked for a better time to spend on this day. We look forward to having you again and learn more from you. So have a great time in Nilgiris and hope to see you sometimes in person.
Okay, take care, everybody. All the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, so over to Charvi. If you have the people who have, got the names, and you can then ask them to send us their email IDs. Yeah, Charvi, here are the names. We have it on the chat for all of us. So people, what I will request is just drop us an email. Okay, Bharat is not able to. Cool. I'll just admit Roberta. Yes. Yeah, so the winners for today is very quickly, and you all will have to just kind of send us in your, email ID. So then we can connect with you. Oberoi, Sandeep Pillai, Subramanyam, Roberta, Abhijit, NJ, Bharat, Dibanjan, Prakash, and Nagesh. These are our top 10 winners. You will be receiving a book, but please do drop us an email. And Charvi, can you just share your email? Or yes, sorry, here it is, sanchit@folksq.com. Please drop us your details on this, all the winners, and we will be sending you across your book. Thank you so much. And what we will do is for all of you, we will share the link for the feedback for those of you who find it that it's not working. Charvi, let's do that as well. Yeah.
Yes, surely we'll do.
Yeah. And winners, again, the email ID is here, Sanchit, SANCHIT @focusU.com. Please send us your details and the book should go to you. Yeah. Have a great evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us. See you soon for another Fireside Chat from Focus U.